well as the Magistrate Betts matter.
Thank you. In accordance with the resolution of the House, business is interrupted for the presentation of inaugural speeches, and I have great pleasure in calling the member for Coogee. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I must start by congratulating you for being the first Speaker in this House in history, first female Speaker in the House.
Thank you. Thank you.
Madam Speaker, I stand here today truly humbled by the honour of being elected to this House as the Liberal member for Coogee. I want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, but also those of Coogee, the Bidjigal people, their elders, past and present. The name Coogee is believed to be derived from a Bidjigal word, meaning the smell of rotting seaweed. Now, it's not the most poetic of images, but it's a description you're never likely to forget. In inaugural speeches to this House, new members have waxed lyricals about the attributes of their respective electorates. Madam Speaker, over the last few weeks, I've searched high and low for that which is uniquely Coogee. And it hurts me to confess, Madam Speaker, that I don't think I've found it. Coogee being the smallest electorate in New South Wales, I considered a walk around the electorate to be beneficial in my search for inspiration for this speech. I fuelled myself with caffeine at Bazura Cafe next to the Coogee Surf Club. The sands of Coogee Beach were full of nippers training to take their place as lifesavers. Ross Freeman, the last Liberal member to win Coogee back in 1973, was a regular at that club. So I set off and glanced back out to Wedding Cake Island just off the coast. It's a stunning sight. It protects the beach from the most violent of swells. I stopped across the road from the Coogee Bay Hotel, whose Part 3 application was the source of much community angst during the election campaign. But I was pleased that our election commitment to scrap Part 3A had been fulfilled. Throughout my campaign, I spoke of the pressing need to reduce the incidence of alcohol-fuelled antisocial behaviour, a problem which has plagued Coogee for many years. When I was Mayor of Randwick, I called for a 1 a.m. lockout at the Coogee pubs, and the situation has since improved. Some have cruelly suggested that the improvement is largely due to me not going out drinking in Coogee on Saturday nights anymore. Be that as it may, Madam Speaker, the Liberal Party's increased move-on powers for our police and our 3 strikes and you're out policy will further improve the situation for long-suffering Coogee residents. So I was able to tick the boxes of 2 of my election commitments in the first 150 metres of my walk. Coogee Bay Road still retains the character of a small beachside village of yesteryear. It's where my grandparents, Neville and Lillian Notley-Smith, lived in the 1920s and where they opened up an electrical contracting and appliance store. Neville's business went well enough for him to buy a brand new car in the mid-1930s. Every afternoon, arriving home from work, he would stop at the foot of the hill, beat the horn, and dozens of kids would run out, climb aboard and ride to the top of the street. In 1940, Neville volunteered to go and fight in the war, but he was refused entry as he was considered too old at 40. This was easily fixed by going to the next recruitment post and lying about his age. A scandalous thing to do, lying about your age. I would never do that, Madam Speaker. After action in the Middle East, he was captured and spent the next 3 years on the Thai-Burma Railway. In Neville's absence, Lillian became the area commandant for the Voluntary Aid Detachment, assisting veterans with nursing care and first aid, and running Randwick Municipal Council's, as it was in those days, child immunisation program, a job she hated, she told me, sticking needles into toddlers every day. Little Nan, as we called her, taught me the art of bandaging and caring for a wound. Some years later, albeit for a short time, I ended up an ambulance officer, and it was her who inspired me. Neville died just before I was born, but I was immensely proud when people would walk up to me and ask if I was related and tell me how a wonderful person he was. Now back to my walking tour. I left the beach and I ascended Dolphin's Point, where that stunning bronze sculpture stands in memory of the victims of the Bali bombings. Coogee lost a lot that day, and now this special place honours the memory of all those from New South Wales killed in Bali. Further up the hill sits the fine 1916 home of the Worth family, owners of the famous Worth Circus that toured the country in years past. Often they would rest their circus animals, including elephants, in the grounds of the house. My other grandfather, Alan Peasley, was as proud a railway man as you could ever find. He spent 5 of his 42 New South Wales railway career as a guard on the Worth Circus train. Pa Peasley was elected to Griffith City Council in 1949, representing the Australian Labor Party. He was a unionist, fierce anti-communist and a loyal Jack Lang man to the end. Thus he became one of the strongest Liberal Party supporters you could ever meet. In fact, a Peasley ancestor served in this house in the 1860s, the son of convict parents. It was a handy fact to remind my dad that Mum's side of the family had an elected member of Parliament and his didn't. This cruel fact assisted him to open his wallet again and again to boost my campaign funds to address the imbalance. Pa Peasley taught me a lot of things, but one thing will always stick with me. Son, he said, whenever you've helped somebody out, forget about it straight away, because if you think of it as a favour, it means that you expect something in return. Descending through the Melaleucas to Thompson's Bay, a small inlet with fishing boats stowed upon the beach, I remember as a boy exploring the vast derelict mansion, Cliffbrook, that commanded views across this bay. Maybe this is what kindled my interest in the history of Coogee. I joined the Randwick and District Historical Society and I teamed up with a range of community activists who campaigned to protect our natural and built environment. Nellie Peasley, or Big Nan as we called her, would sit for days with me at the State Library without a word of complaint as I pored over books on Australian history. Back to my walk. Passing the safe sheltered cove of Clovelly, I crossed the newly open elevated walkway passing below Waverley Cemetery. It's got the best ocean views for all those great Australians such as Henry Lawson, Dorothea McKellar and the aviation pioneer like Lawrence Hargrave who lie there. But it's time to stop for a coffee. A latte, of course, it is Coogee, at the relaxed Bronte Beach, home of the world's first surf lifesaving club and the favourite swimming haunt of Paul Pearce, the former member for Coogee. Paul is a good man, principled and respected by all, and I want to thank him for his genuine affection for and his dedicated service to our community going back over many, many years. I wish his partner Ingrid and all his family a happy and prosperous future. Passing Tamarama and its leafy gully that soars up behind me, I climb the headland like thousands of others do every summer and marvel at the sculpture by the sea. Coogee loves its culture, the Spot Food and Film Festival and the Australian Film Walk of Fame, Randwick and Waverley Council's Literary Awards and so much more. The long walk up to Bondi Road to Bondi Junction to the bustling mini metropolis with some of the finest shopping in the country is testament to what a heavy rail line can bring. The Eastern Suburbs Railway was first considered in this house in the 1870s. Stations in Waverley, Randwick and Kingsford and beyond were planned. We're a patient people in Coogee. We're still waiting for our railway to be finished. 1 week after I was pre-selected, Bondi Junction was awash with Liberals spruiking our cause. 1 whole year before the actual election. Candidates don't win elections, Madam Speaker, campaign teams do. From the start were young Liberals Sam Ison, John Koutoukas, Rohan Alexander and Andrew Hay, and of course my trusty lieutenant of over 8 years, James Farrer. The not-so-young Liberals were Nandan Wadakan, Belinda Archer, Jono Elias, Angela Burrell, Hugh Ellens and Peter Vessels, who sadly passed away during the campaign. I want to thank my ongoing party supporters and former Senator Chris Public, Greg Hamilton, Patricia Peasley, Tony Gentili, Grace Guerrera, Rosemary Coleman, Professor Bruce Warren, Patricia Murrell, Philip Boyd, Christy Hamilton and of course Dominic Kelly and the Mossman Young Liberals for their tireless work. And of course my great mate Nick Wright for all his incredible insights and his calming sound advice when it was all going pear-shaped. Gresta Semmons has come up today from Melbourne, just as she has done for every election since 1995 to assist me. She's my good luck charm. But every campaign team needs a decisive captain at the helm. I believe if the Allies had had Bev Martin in charge, they would have won World War II within weeks. Bev moves, talks and thinks faster than the Porsche she drives. Her stamina is more than a case of energy drinks could ever deliver. I first met Bev in 1998 when I volunteered for the Coogee campaign. She's a self-made, successful businesswoman who's worked tirelessly for 20 years to bring Coogee back into the Liberal fold. The former Liberal Mayor of Randwick, Margaret Martin, a supporter and friend of mine over many years, also ran for the seat of Coogee and came to within a whisker of winning it. I thank all of you who've assisted me in this campaign, and Bev, this is as much as your victory as it is mine. So I've left the busy Oxford Street malls to head for some respite amongst the tranquillity of the undulating hills and fresh water ponds of Centennial Parklands. So whilst Centennial Parklands, the home of our nation's federation, is strictly not in Coogee, it marks its western border. It's the playground of my constituents, and thus it should be in Coogee. So, note for the next redistribution. The noise of the crowd across the road at Royal Randwick, Australia's oldest and most famous racecourse, takes me back within Coogee borders. Kensington still retains its strong links to racing. $1-million horses clop along the street every morning. I join Anzac Parade, Sydney's widest boulevard that snakes its way from the city to La Perouse. The Paragon Seafood Restaurant, the set for the series Underbelly, is just across the road in Heffron. And the star of that... and that great Australian actor, Roy Billing, is here with us today in the gallery. Thank you, Roy. Running up the hill from Anzac Parade to the world-class medical precinct of the Prince of Wales Hospital is the University of New South Wales, Australia's finest tertiary institution. Maybe one day I'll finish one of those degrees that I started there. 50 years ago, Sydney's last tram trundled its way past here on its final journey. When you see the thousands upon thousands of bus travellers that use this, Madam Speaker, I seek an extension.
The question is that the member's time be extended. All of that opinion say aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. When you see the thousands upon thousands of bus travellers that use this route almost every day, you know that the tram's time has come again. I campaigned on bringing light rail back to this boulevard, to this university, and I aim to see that long-held dream come true. Lunchtime in Kensington and Kingsford is always a challenge. Which Thai, Chinese, Indonesian, Mexican or Greek restaurant do you choose? The streets teem with students from all over the world. Such a diversity and critical mass of people from near and far always ensures a vibrant town centre full of the finest authentic cuisine, and students always ensures it remains cheap. Heading along Rainbow Street, the southern border of Coogee, I pass my old school, Randwick Boys High. Randwick Boys was always great at rugby, but that's no surprise because Randwick's rugby team has always been the world's best. And Coogee is the home of the former Wallaby captain, Simon Poitevin, who is here with us today in the gallery as well. More recently, Randwick Boys High, together with Randwick Girls High, have won the New South Wales Rocker Stedford twice. It's little wonder, though, because Randwick Boys' most famous son is Jim Sharman, director of the greatest musical ever, the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Further down Rainbow Street is my family home. My parents, Alan and Gloria Notley-Smith, bought this home in the 50s when they moved from Coogee. They've recently moved away, allowing a new, young family to enjoy growing up there just as much as we did. My dad, Alan, left school at 15. He applied to be a bookbinder, but they only had one position for an apprentice compositor. That'll do, his mum told the boss, and his future was sorted. Dad thrived in the printing industry and soon bought an old pedal-powered printing machine of his own. He established his own part-time printing business and laboured long into the night in the garage. Maybe it's in his DNA, maybe it's in my DNA. Because as far back as we can discover, Notley-Smiths have always been self-employed. So with a mortgage, 3 kids and another one on the way, my dad left his job and set out on his own. Our home was always a hive of activity, being blessed with a work-at-home dad and a stay-at-home mum. My mum, Gloria, spent her time raising her 5 boys, looking after a hard-working entrepreneurial husband, and always volunteering at Coogee Public School, where she was later made an honorary life member. As we boys became teenagers, there was always unannounced guests for dinner. Mum never disappointed. Duck down the road and get another leg of lamb, please, she'd say, and the 8 or 9 uninvited guests were catered for with yet another roast dinner. Every one of my mates wanted my parents as theirs. They were always so welcoming. One mate of mine came to stay for a weekend and he didn't leave for 2 years. But nothing challenges and defines a family more than adversity. When my youngest brother Anthony was tragically killed just before his 7th birthday, I really learnt the true value of love and of human life. We'll always miss you, Doody. My mum and dad are Liberal to the core, not through membership of the party, because of how they lived their lives. They didn't need to read Adam Smith, Mills or Menzies to know that determination, optimism and sheer hard work can deliver a life far beyond modest expectations. No political dogma taught them that unqualified love for your family builds society's strongest bonds, no matter what the makeup of a family may be. They know that charity for fellow citizens should not come through some philosophical sense of obligation, but rather through a heartfelt sense of humanity. They know that no matter how difficult our lives become, there's always someone else who has less, someone doing it tougher than us. The values passed down to us from those we respect, those who live by what they say, are, I believe, the strongest guide to a good life. I'm very proud of my brothers Greg, Stephen and Paul and their partners and wives, Michelle, Sue and Lee. I'm proud not just of what they've achieved, but of the values they live by. They will ensure that my gorgeous nieces and nephews, Lauren, Lily, Stuart and little James and Benjamin will inherit the same. My mum and dad are almost 80 years old now, but they still spend most of their time giving to others, organising social and fundraising events at their retirement village. Thank you, Mum and Dad, for the trust shown and the freedom given me and for always loving me. At the top of Rainbow Street, I've had enough of walking and I sit and enjoy the spectacular view from Blenheim Park up along the coast, across the valleys to Bondi Junction and west to the university. You can see almost the entire electorate. It gives me time to thank the many other people that have assisted me get to this place. The many members and ministers who supported me throughout the campaign, with Gillian Skinner, Gladys Berejiklian and Mike Baird making repeat visits, and thanks to the inspiring leadership of Barry O'Farrell. And I thank my former boss, Malcolm Turnbull, for the support he's given me. No member is more deserving of my gratitude, though, than the Honourable Don Harwin, MLC. I've been told, Madam Speaker, he's a bit busy in the other place. Don is the President of the Legislative Council. I thank him for his friendship, his outstanding intellect, and his unwavering support of me over many, many years. Thanks to Nick Berry, Ron and Diane McDonald, Sally Cray, Trent Zimmerman, Dr Brian Lindsay, Simon Moore, Michael Photius, Mark Neam, Chris Stone, Lisa Marie Shell, Paul Casper and Sam Payino. To Libby Lambert, Nee Bowen, who was my closest mate, a partner in crime when I was a young boy, who sadly passed away last year, thank you. To my fellow councillors Ted Seng, Scott Nash, Kyle Smith, Robert Bellelli and Her Worship the Mayor of Waverley, Councillor Sally Betts. Thanks to all the branch members in Coogee and beyond, to the Randwick City Council General Manager Ray Brownlee and council staff, all 500 of them, and of course James Boland Rudder, JBR, a top bloke. Now, Madam Speaker, I have to confess I didn't complete my walk around the electorate all in one day. My partner would burst into fits of laughter at the thought of me walking 16 kilometres. But the journey Paul Weston and I have made together is a much longer one. I met Paul in London 20 years ago, just weeks before I left to return to Australia after a year of backpacking. I only got as far as Bangkok when I was on the phone sobbing that I missed him and convinced him to come to Australia. He arrived 2 months later. We were just a couple of kids. I set up my business a couple of years later and Paul went to law school. Paul encouraged me to run for council, when the opportunity arose. He and I ran the entire independent campaign in 1995, staying up late into the night, utilising his artistic skills at designing brochures. Politics is always hardest for politicians' partners. They put so much of their lives into our careers and they silently suffer the stresses and frustrations, the setbacks and the difficulties that a life in politics inevitably brings. After a long day of campaigning, Paul and I would sit on the balcony with a glass of wine and judge the success of the day by the number of times we broke up. If we broke up only 3 times that day was a pretty good day. So just as no parent deserves a child like me, nor does anyone deserve a partner like me. Any achievement of mine over the last 20 years has been in partnership with him. I stand in the shadow cast by Paul's amazing talent and intellect. I'm dwarfed by his clarity of thought, his compassion and his honesty, and I'm engulfed by his love, his loyalty and his affection. There's so much that needs to be done in New South Wales to make the place we all know it can be. I bring to this House experience, strong views and sound ideas for reform in this state. I recently got an SMS from an old customer of my cleaning business. It said, "Darling, I've just updated my phone contacts. You've gone from Bruce my cleaner to Bruce my mayor to Bruce my member." It's a short, humorous message, but one which speaks volumes of the opportunity that this great state offers all those who persevere. Today I've chosen not to rake over the last 16 years. The people of New South Wales said it all on March 26. For now, this is the time to offer my constituents, those who have placed their trust in me to represent their interests in this House, my deepest appreciation and give them my word that I'll tirelessly discharge my duty with integrity, honesty and enthusiasm. Madam Speaker, my journey across Coogee turned up nothing unique. Other electorates have a university, rugged coastal scenery, sparkling beaches and sheltered coves, a racecourse, a major hospital, stunning vistas, great shopping and restaurants, world-class rugby teams, multicultural population and proud public schools. But perhaps none of these things matter. Electorates may or may not be showpieces in the eyes of others, but most importantly, they are our home. Home is a place to feel safe and comfortable, to raise our family, to share life's experiences with those we love. A place where we can work and prosper, become part of a community, contribute to that community, a place to grow old and recall memories. Home is a place where we are free to be who we are. So whether you've recently arrived or have lived in Coogee for decades, it's my job to ensure that Coogee remains the best home we could ever wish for, because Coogee is my home.
What a speech! Well done. Very well done. Very well done. Mate. Excellent. Very good. Well done. Well done, Bruce. Good on you. Good speech, mate. Well done.